Yes, I love this land. It takes my breath away.
Welcome back to Texas 10. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Steve. And over the last 5 years, we've traveled throughout Texas. And in 10 minutes, we're going to tell you something great about our great Lone Star State. Today, we're going to start talking about something near and dear to my heart, Tex Mex food.
Tex Mex, man. How many meals have we eaten?
1 billion. 1 billion Tex Mex meals.
Well, honestly, I don't know that I could even count how many I've eaten because I do not have a memory in my life without having Tex Mex.
Of course not, because you started in San Antonio, right?
I did. I was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas, and some of my earliest memories are going to El Rancho with my family, and my dad loved Tex Mex like no other person you have ever met. And he loved to bring on the heat. In fact, the waiters at El Rancho knew this about my dad, and my dad was bald, and so they would always bring a napkin and they would put it on his head so the sweat wouldn't roll into his eyes, and he would just keep eating it. And I'm telling you, those puffy tacos, there is just nothing like it.
Well, San Antonio, as we're going to learn, is sort of the capital of Tex-Mex, and Tex-Mex is sort of shrouded in mystery. It's just so much of a part of our lives that I thought maybe it'd be good to talk about how it became that way. But before we do, the other thing I want to talk about in terms of how it's a part of our lives is people of a certain age, you, me, what does raise the flag mean to you?
Oh, sopapillas, ponchos. Man, you would, after you finished your meal, you'd raise the flag and they'd bring you sopapillas and then you'd eat those and then you'd raise the flag again and they'd bring you sopapillas. Oh my gosh. Put the honey in them.
Right.
Oh, man.
Sopapillas and honey, that's great. So anyway, Tex-Mex, there's actually some misconceptions about it. People might get the idea that it's a fusion food, that it's a fusion of Texas and Mexican cuisines. It in some ways it is, but that's really not where the name came from. You know where the name came from?
You know, Steve, I do, but
I'm
going to let you.
Okay.
Because
well, so much of our history, it's informed by railroads. So the region of the state that Tex-Mex developed in was serviced by the Texas Mexican Railroad. That was the name of the railroad. And so the area first became known as Tex-Mex as a shortening for the railroad that serviced it. And then eventually it got applied to the people that lived there who were largely Tejano, and then finally to the food.
Well, you know, the history is great, but I just eat the food. In fact, you know, I was born and raised in Texas, and when Steve proposed to me, he said, "Marry me and I'll show you the world." And he did. He took me to Germany for 3.5 years, and that was great, but there was no Tex-Mex.
There is something, now Tex-Mex has really flourished across the United States now. Like, for instance, California added fish, so you have fish tacos. That's not true Tex-Mex. No. But everybody, it's good, and everybody has their own take on it. But for a long time, it was hard to get the right ingredients across the world.
Right. I had some things sent to me, I'm not going to lie. And I will tell you, I learned how to make enchiladas. And most importantly, I learned how to make the tortillas.
Right.
Because I could not live for 3.5 years without them. And so when we came home in the middle of our tour, it was in December, if you'll remember, we landed in San Antonio, and the first thing out of our mouths was not, "It's so good to see you, Mom and Dad." It was like, "We're tired, but we need some Mexican food." And so we went straight to one of our favorite Mexican food restaurants and had Mexican food.
I think it was La Fonda.
I think it probably was.
Right.
So let's talk about some great Mexican food places.
Well, so Mexican food places, wherever you live in Texas, people have their go-tos. And we started early in San Antonio. Mi Tierra's is
open 24 hours a day, 364 days a year. Christmas decorations all year long. They have a bakery with all the Mexican bakery, pastries. but more importantly, they have great tamales, great enchiladas, great tacos.
Right.
Oh,
You
this is
can
good.
find it anywhere. We moved to Dallas, and where did we eat? I'm sure more meals than any other restaurant.
Mi Casina.
Right. And then now in Waco, we have several go-tos.
There's several. La Fiesta is my number one. And then Ninfa's has come into town from Houston, and I love Ninfa's as well.
Well, and it's interesting when you say Ninfa's because it's a small chain as far as restaurants go, but it is based on Mother Ninfa. I believe the original Ninfa's is on Navigation in Houston.
Yep.
And so many of the great Tex-Mex restaurants are either inspired by or were started by the matriarch of the family.
Well, you think in Coppell, there was that great little one that was also started by the mom of the family.
La Hacienda in San Antonio.
Mi Casina in Dallas.
You just repeat that story. And it's interesting because you go back to the founding of Tex-Mex, and San Antonio is a city built on plazas, right? Well, in San Antonio, where Tex-Mex got its true start it was a inexpensive meal for a dime. They served chili con carne, which is a staple of Tex-Mex food, sort of a stew, for this 10 cents, and it was delivered by, they were called the Chili Queens of San Antonio. And that's where Tex-Mex actually really took off, because San Antonio was a trade center. There were people coming in and out, and it was a great meal. It was very filling, and it had a different taste to it. And so the Chili Queens are the original originators of Tex-Mex as sort of a commercial idea.
Well, and so many traditions are built around Tex-Mex. One tradition was at our high school, and I don't know if y'all know this, but in Texas schools, there's always an enchilada day. And at MacArthur High School, it was always Wednesday, and if I didn't remember it was, I could tell because Steve always had a little dripping of whatever there was on his shirt. Right. And we had different lunch periods, and I can remember going, oh yeah, today was enchilada day. I can't wait to get there.
Well, I served on our 40th reunion committee, and the 40th year reunion committee, and we had a bunch of people show up, and the comment that we got over and over was they were so happy that the caterer was able to replicate the Wednesday enchiladas from San Antonio MacArthur High School, which actually the school district had published a recipe book. And so we got that dead on. It was a big success at the reunion.
It was good.
Right.
Other traditions are tamales. On Christmas Eve, the tradition is, rather than something else, we have tamales. And I mean, I don't think that's just our tradition. That's many people's traditions. And I found some great tamale makers over the years. In San Antonio, we had this couple that would deliver them on the 23rd, and we'd also have them then on Christmas Eve. We had a big Christmas party every year, and we served tamales. And on Christmas Eve, we always have tamales. And here in Texas, I have Chevy. His sister makes our tamales every Christmas, and it's just not the same as like store-bought tamales. You got to find your tamale maker.
Right.
And it is unbelievable. And if you've ever seen them make it, it is a process, and it takes a whole day. And any of my friends who've learned how to make tamales say it's a family affair.
Well, so that's great. And what you're talking about, sort of our experiences, coincides with Tex-Mex becoming a thing of its own. Mm-hmm. And the story behind that's sort of interesting. In the 1970s, early 1970s, a woman by the name of Diana Kennedy, she was a food critic in England, and she fancied herself as the authority on Mexican food. And she published the first definitive cookbook of Mexico called Cuisines of Mexico in 1972. All that's great, but what she did was she really threw some shade at Tex-Mex. She wanted everybody to know that was just sort of garbage stuff. It wasn't really a cuisine of Mexico, which, okay, your contribution to world cuisine is fish and chips, so I don't know why they're throwing shade. But anyway, it turns out that people disagreed with her, but what she did is she segregated it and made the world know Tex-Mex was its own thing, and it's taken off since then.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I could eat Tex-Mex food, as you all know, every day of the week. And we laugh because we were in, our car broke down on one of our trips to West Texas, and we were in Andrews, Texas. And so we got it into a dealer to try to fix Stella. And so we were walking around, and you know how in big cities there's a Starbucks on every corner? Well, in Andrews, there was a Mexican food place on every corner. In Waco, we joke and say that we could probably go to a different Mexican food place in Waco every day, and I don't know that we'd hit them off. We went every day for a year.
I think El Chaparral is a secret chain that there's a million of them. And so that's all true, and it just shows how much it's spread, and it's our food. It is absolutely our food. We love it, and we love Tex-Mex, and we love Texas, and that's what we have at Texas10.com for this week. So at Texas10.com, we tried to do the impossible. If you go to Texas10.com/Tex-Mex, we've listed the 10 best Tex-Mex restaurants in Texas. You think that's fair?
It's fair. That's a hard list, Steve.
It's a super hard list, and we know you've got opinions on this too. We want to hear them. Texas10.com will allow you to upvote your own and share with your neighbors and whatnot, so we can understand what the people's choice are of the best Tex-Mex restaurants in Texas. We want to know, so go to Texas10.com, check that out, check everything else out, our socials, give us a like, subscribe, those things. But most of all, have some Tex-Mex and tell us about it.
We'll try it. And join us again on Texas10.com.
Bye.
About you, and I love this land. Oh, it takes my breath away. From the Palo Duro to the Gulf Coast Plain, from the heart of the hill country to the piney wood shade. I love this land. It takes my breath away.